In the wake of breaches of Target, Neiman Marcus, the whole country is abuzz with chip cards. Can you tell us a little bit about what chip cards are and what the EMV standard is?
Yeah, certainly, Adam. The chip card, basically, chip and pin as we call it in Europe, consists of a chip that sits on the card and a pin number, 4-digit pin number, that is provided with the card that the user can change, and you use that at the point of sale. So as opposed to what you have here in the US at the moment, where you would hand over your card and actually sign your name, instead of the signature component piece, what you would do is then input your PIN number. That has significantly increased the integrity of the system, particularly where it's been launched in France and the UK, for instance, and has been shown to reduce fraud at the point of sale. It doesn't get rid of it completely, but it has been proven to be slightly better in terms of reducing it, and it makes life a little bit more difficult for the cyber criminal, or indeed the person who wants to perhaps steal some of those cards in the good old-fashioned way by lifting your wallet, because then of course they can't use them without the PIN number. The EMV standard that you refer to is the standard that's been adopted for those cards across Europe. So for instance, here in the United States, if you're looking at moving from one set of standards to another, there is a strong argument, I think, for adopting one that's in wide use across the rest of the world, because then that eases the transition, particularly for people who are coming to the United States, being able to use their cards here with a consistent standard, and of course for anybody from the United States who's travelling outside, who would then be able to make use of their cards as well, which they currently can't do from a chip and pin perspective.
Would retailers like Target and Neiman Marcus, would they have benefited if chip cards were in the country prior to the breaches that happened to them?
Well, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because the cyber criminal is always going to be really heading for this kind of information, this kind of data, because that's where the money is. So it's probably impossible to say whether or not the impact of the breach would have been reduced significantly. What it might have done, however, is make life a little bit more difficult. And really, with everything to do with security, what you're really trying to do is to make yourself look as unattractive to the cyber criminal as possible, in the hope that they will then move on to another target. But in terms of whether or not it would have significantly reduced the impact, who knows? I mean, that's one of those impossible asks.
With talk being so heavy about getting chip cards into the country as quick as possible, I know Target CEO really wants to push them. What's preventing the ball from getting rolling in the US with chip cards getting put in?
Well, traditionally, one of the things that has always been raised here, of course, is the cost. You do have quite a lot of infrastructure that has been already rolled out across the United States using the formats that you currently have. And so I don't think we should underestimate the cost associated with replacing that, or indeed the time to actually do it. And somebody has to bear that cost. And the common debate tends to be, well, should that be the merchant? Should it be the card provider? Or should it be the consumer? Ultimately, in all of these things, of course, it's the consumer that ends up footing the bill for these kinds of things.
Other people have said that there's some other technologies we could look into before jumping immediately into chip cards. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Certainly, there are some viable options that you could look into. I mean, biometrics have certainly now come of age. They're much more accepted. I think Apple, by introducing that onto the last range of iPhones, really tested that one out for us in terms of seeing whether or not that was an acceptable way of validating your identity. 10 years or so ago, that wouldn't have been the case. So I think that biometrics is certainly a way to go. There are some software solutions as well that are out there now that, again, are really quite interesting. But I think that if you look at how chip and pin is being used in other parts of the world, if you're looking for a solution that certainly is tested, that is easily rolled out, and that people have demonstrated they can adopt and use fairly readily, then it's probably, at the moment anyway, the best game in town. But that doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't be looking at some of the other options that are out there in order to really cater for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
it is a long-term investment. Is it something that's going to happen in the next year, in 2014 in the United States, or will we not see this for another couple of years?
Well, I think the first step is to try to reach some form of agreement as to what you're going to do and how you're going to then roll that out. The reality, I think, is that given the size of the retail operations that you have across the United States, it's not something that you could do overnight. And so it will be a gradual process, I think, of rolling that out. And really, it's for the various authorities and the card issuers and the retailers to sit down and to figure out how that might be done. But for me, it certainly isn't going to be done quickly.
I just want to thank Steve Durbin, Global VP with ISF, for joining us today. I'm Adam Greenberg, reporter with SC Magazine. Thanks for tuning in.